Tuning into Sci-Fi TV, the viewer's guide to genre television for the week of September 19th to September 25th, 2015.
How did this happen? Where did it go? It should have been there last week's episode. I thought I was set up with my season pass. Now the new show is out, and I don't know what happened last week. How did my TiVo forget?
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Wendy Hembrock.
I'm Brent Barrett.
That makes me Kevin Batchelder.
And of course, we've got a poll running. It will be closing soon, but we want to know, where do you watch most of your TV programming? And surprisingly enough, we've got people watching in the garage and the bathroom, although the living room / family room is still firmly in the lead.
I'm glad that the Den Study Home Office is in there, because that's where I watch most of my stuff.
Yeah, and bedroom going strong at 24% too. A lot of folks use that way.
I'm surprised there's no kitchen one. My sister has a TV in her kitchen, and we end up watching a lot of TV in there, sitting around a big island.
Well, in my case with the iPad, I mean, I'll end up watching it in many of the rooms, including the kitchen, but it's certainly not where I do most of it.
We should have had an everywhere option for Kevin.
Yeah, portable.
Attached to my hip. So if you haven't voted already, go ahead and vote. Otherwise, there'll be another poll coming very soon. We also have a contest running to win a season of The Last Ship. You can win Season 1 or Season 2, depending on what format you want to select. Season 2 is only available in instant video, but Season 1's on DVD, Blu-ray, and instant video. Listen for the code phrase to enter in this episode. The deadline for entries is October 9th.
It's definitely worth it, folks. I mean, there's a genre hook to this, there absolutely is, but it's just a really well-paced, great characters, great action, just a really wonderful story.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we can set up the contest to let you pick. If you haven't seen the show yet, obviously grab Season 1, but if you did see Season 1, I know a couple of you mentioned on social media that if you do win, you're looking at Season 2 because you haven't got to it yet, so very much glad we can help you do that.
Yeah, this is definitely a show I highly recommend to anybody who might be interested. And as Brent mentioned, it doesn't have to be just for the genre. There's great stories, great action, good characters. So let's kick things off with the water cooler.
We need to tape a promo, guys. If you had to encapsulate the round table in one catchphrasey kind of way, what would you say?
Rampant geekery? Redonkulous? Let's not go with shrink. That The first one was good. The second one was great. After that, it kind of,
Guys, promo. Stay on topic here.
Okay.
Stay on topic.
Stay on topic. Oh, no, I'm going in. Stay on topic. Stay on topic. Red leader, I'm sorry. Stay on topic. I can't say it. It's up to you, Red 5.
Oh, God.
Here's the promo,
So-
Luke.
Promo! The Round Table. Brought to you by Revolution SF. Tough love for sci-fi. Available at revolutionsf.com and iTunes.
First up, we're going to talk about the shows we've been watching this week and whether we think you should watch them now, soon, let them sit on your DVR, or skip. Starting with Saturday, September 19th, the return of Doctor Who for Series 9, Episode 1, The Magician's Apprentice. I say watch it now.
Yeah, I really liked this and was pleasantly surprised given last season. I'd say low end watch it now.
I think of the three of us, I'm the lower level for Doctor Who fanness, but I enjoyed it, but I'd probably just say mid to upper watch it soon.
And Sunday, Lost Girl on the Canadian schedule, Series 5, Episode 11, Sweet Valkyrie High. I haven't seen this yet.
I'd only say watch it soon, even though I love a particular character that you can imagine was highlighted in this episode.
Yeah, and it was pretty well done there. So I'd maybe go high watch it soon for that reason.
And Fear the Walking Dead, Episode 4 of Season 1, Not Fade Away. I'm not watching this.
As I was watching this, I was saying to myself, if I was not doing the podcast, I definitely wouldn't be watching this show, but I'd say let it sit.
And even though I am doing the podcast, I'm not watching it.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking one for the team and watching this, Brent.
No problem.
And The Strain, episode 11 of season 2, Dead End. I'm not watching this.
I am, and I would. It continues to be really good. I'd say high end. Watch it soon.
Not one on my calendar, though.
Yeah, this is gonna go to the list to catch up on, I think, based on Brent's comments. Moving on to Monday, the 21st, Gotham season 2 returns, episode 1, Damned If You Do. It was pretty good. I would give it a strong watch it soon.
I'm not watching.
Neither am I.
And Minority Report, the series premiere, episode 1 is the pilot. I would give it a low watch it soon.
I want to be a little kinder and just give it a watch it soon.
Yeah, I'm somewhere in that low to medium range.
And The Big Bang Theory returns, episode 1 of season 9, The Matrimonial Momentum. I haven't seen this.
I wanted this to be really good, but it wasn't. High end, let it sit.
Yeah, it really wasn't. Probably generous, a very low watch it soon.
Ooh. Moving on to Tuesday, From Dusk Till Dawn, episode 5 of season 2, Bondage. I'm not watching this.
Nor am I.
Really liking what they're doing in season 2. Another strong one. High watch it soon.
And Limitless premieres, episode 1 of season 1, the pilot. I haven't seen this yet.
I started out not thinking this was going to be a great show, and by the end I was pretty entertained, so I say low end, watch it soon.
Yeah, I'm kind of waiting on this one to see if it's worth watching, so I haven't seen it yet.
And Scream Queens premiered with a back-to-back episode. The pilot and episode 2 was called Hell Week. I would give them both a watch it soon.
I did not catch either.
I wanted to like it more, but it was okay. So I'd probably just give it a middle watch it soon.
And Thursday, Heroes Reborn also premiered with a double episode. The first was titled Brave New World, and the second was titled Odessa. I would give both of them a watch it soon.
Yeah, as I said last time when I gave my review of the screeners I had seen, I was pleasantly surprised. I did not expect much, and I was entertained. So I would actually give, combined, the two of them a high-end watch it soon.
Yeah, and it was great that you gave us that spoiler-free feedback about a week ago, because, the first third or so was a bit on the slow side, but it did pick up. So, yeah, I've got good hopes. I'd probably say mid to upper watch it soon overall.
And closing out the week with Friday's episode of Continuum, number 3 of the season 4 final season, Power Hour. I liked this. I would go low watch it now.
Yeah, I concur. Low watch it now.
It's a three-peat. Low watch it now.
Woohoo! Glad to see Continuum is making a comeback. So we're a little down on it for the first couple episodes.
Halfway through its final season.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have high standards for this show,
Yes. Well, it's made the turn in the right direction. So let's move on to some listener feedback and news. First, we're going to start with some voicemail we got from Christine in Michigan of first talking about the recent Tuner Minute called Careful What You Wish For.
A show I think did well in their final season actually got to do it twice. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Season 5 was a good season. It didn't feel rushed, and it didn't ramble around trying to figure out what it was doing, and the finale was great. Then, to everyone's surprise, the show got picked up by another network. They had to come back from their pretty final finale for another 2 seasons, only to end again. I know it's not the popular opinion, but Season 7 is my favorite of the show, followed closely by 2 and 3. And the actual finale was perfect. The show couldn't have ended another way, and there was nothing left hanging.
Ooh, good catch, Christine. Yeah, that was a good one. I'm shocked, frankly, that Kevin didn't think of it. But yeah, that is a great example of one that did end twice, and it did fairly well twice. And I can kind of think of probably Babylon 5 as well in a similar vein, because season 4 ended. They knew it was going to end before it was written, so it ended kind of sped up, but it had a really satisfying ending for season 4. And then they knew season 5 would end, and then they finished off season 5 really well. But of course, that was actually the season 4 filmed finale that they played in season 5. So I think they did a pretty good job of ending both of those as well, twice.
Yep, excellent. Excellent observation. Appreciate it there, Christine, and completely understand where you're coming at. The only thing I'll slightly differ with is I do see season 2 as my favorite and the best season of Buffy, but that's a matter of opinion.
Oh, interesting. That could be its own Tuner Minute. Name your favorite season of Buffy. That was interesting to call out Buffy for having 2 season endings, and of course my brain immediately went to thinking of other shows that sort of had that, and I immediately thought of Stargate because they kept thinking that show was going to end, and I think season 5 they thought they were going to end, and then season 7, and then season 10. And I think each time they had satisfying endings. I wouldn't necessarily call them quite as memorable as the Buffy season 5 ending in particular. That if that had truly been the series finale, that would have really been epic.
Oh, on a similar note, we also had Dollhouse, which they didn't think any chance was coming back for a second, so it kind of had a big out of left field finale, and then had to come back in and try to make believe like it wasn't there almost. So sometimes it doesn't always work in your favor.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. The series finale that wasn't. We got another voicemail from Christine about another Tuner Minute, the one called Nothing But the Good Stuff that Kevin did as well.
Out of all of the shows that I will rewatch, and there are a lot of them, there is only one episode in one show that I will not watch ever again because it is too emotional. And that's because there is a line between what is entertaining and what is just painful. And that one episode of Buffy, yes, it was that episode, makes me cry too often and too hard and puts me into this horrid state of depression for it to really be considered entertainment anymore. So while I will watch every episode of any other character in any show dying, all the emotional stuff, because that's what the show's about, that's the entertainment part, that one just went too far. I mean, it's a really well done episode, but it hits me too hard to be entertaining.
And I think I tipped my hat to that one a little bit without naming it, too, when I did that Tuner Minute, because I know there are many other folks, and for very good reason, regarding that episode. And that is pretty emotional, is being generous and not even going to how far it can be. And I understand. I am able to watch it, but it is difficult when I go back on those rewatches. And for some other folks who it touches much closer, I understand. No disagreement, no reason to say anything other than that.
Yeah, no, totally get it. Thanks, Christine. Yeah, sometimes things are too close to real life, and that's sort of the double-edged sword of entertainment, is sometimes it can help you work through those things, and sometimes it just sort of dredges up those painful memories, and as Christine mentioned, it kind of makes you sad.
I think I know what Christine's talking about, but I'm not sure, so I'm going to ask a question that has specifics in it. But folks, it's been over 10 years, so this is not a spoiler. But Kevin, this is the one where she finds somebody on the couch dead, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, the episode's called The Body. So thanks for the feedback, and if you all have feedback, we'd love to hear from you in your own words or email, so get in touch with us. And I want to move on to some news that we've got. First off, the Emmys were awarded this week, and one of our genre shows, Game of Thrones, came up huge this season. They won 12 Emmys, which is the most in a single season, and they won in not just all of the creative categories, which is common for genre shows, like the visual effects and all that kind of stuff, but they also won in the really big categories: Best Drama, Best Writing for a Drama, Best Directing for a Drama by David Nutter, Outstanding Supporting Actor for Peter Dinklage. So really good news for Game of Thrones. I know the season 5 was definitely one that had a lot of fan feedback for the showrunners, but overall I think this was kind of some good news to acknowledge a show that has had a huge impact as a TV show, even beyond its genre elements.
Yeah, I was glad to see it. I was definitely glad to see the Peter Dinklage one, especially. You're just not getting that kind of respect for genre-y kind of shows. But part of me also kind of rolled my eyes a little bit and said, if they had given this to Game of Thrones in the first couple of seasons, I would have thought more of it. But now it's to the point where it's become such a cultural phenomenon, they almost can't deny it. And all of them are watching it and loving it too. So it's kind of a backhanded compliment, but I still think it's great. I really do.
Well, I don't think you're wrong, Brent, but I think as we know from previous award shows like this, that's often what happens with some of these shows. Is it took Tatiana, how many years before she got a nod? And no disrespect to her work in the most recent season, but, there is, in my opinion, some better work in others. But that's how it tends to be, the more people within the industry get aware of some of this work, and it is a bit of a nod to the body of the work rather than the most recent set of work. But still, to have one show and a genre one get this many awards, it's still pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree, Brent. I think that the Emmys are slow to the party in terms of recognizing what has already captured the culture. But I'm still just thrilled that they got outstanding drama, especially because this was the last season of Mad Men, and Mad Men has been such a critic's darling that I really didn't expect them to win for series. I thought they would have given it to Mad Men, so that one was especially nice for me to see. And Dinklage, I think he's great. Lena Headey and Emilia Clarke both nominated for supporting actress, but they didn't get it. So let's move on to some other news. Kevin's got news about Proof.
Yeah, this is the TV show on TNT, starring Jennifer Beals. It was announced that they've chosen to cancel it. It won't be coming back. Not a show I watch, but I'm sure Brent can let us know whether or not the story itself got at least to have what might have been seen as a decent ending.
Yeah, this wasn't a show I was watching either, although I did catch pieces of different episodes. So I'm disappointed because I thought it had an interesting concept. But, hopefully they at least ended it with a satisfying conclusion.
Yeah, I don't know about satisfying, but I think if anybody went back and had no life and checked all of my ratings for this, you'd see that it was kind of up and down, a little uneven. But it was overall an enjoyable story. And I don't know about satisfying ending, but they gave an ending that you could look at it as the conclusion of a book in a series of books, sort of thing, where you could say, okay, that was a good story, and then you decide whether or not you want to go on. Well, of course, now you can't go on because there aren't going to be any more. But so I don't know that I'd recommend it to anybody, honestly. But if you did see it, you know what I'm talking about.
Okay. It's sort of like a book that you can enjoy on a plane, but then forget about once the plane's landed.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let's move on now to some news that Brent's got about Heroes Reborn.
Yeah, it's an interview with Zach Levi. He's talking about the Heroes Reborn miniseries, and he talks about a lot of interesting things. The interviewer points out that Zach Levi himself had been asking Tim Kring or bugging Tim Kring about bringing Heroes back because he was a fan of the show. And I love my thumbs are up and a wry smile to Zach Levi for finding a convenient way of saying that he really loved season 1 without slamming the rest of them by pointing out that he had just started Chuck, so he didn't have time to watch the rest of them. Which, of course, he probably did see some of it and probably realized season 1's the best, like we all know. Come on. But it was pretty cool that he was also asked if this is a miniseries. He wanted to come back. He wanted to do some television now, but he liked the idea that this was a miniseries so he could really sink his teeth into it and then just, go on to something else. The obvious question was asked, which is that a lot of miniseries are being renewed into series these days, and what would happen if it got renewed? And he really gave an answer of, I'm not so sure that I would want to be on board. He points out that if he does want another long-term TV gig, but he wants to be basically in charge. He couldn't stand doing another long-term gig where he didn't have the kind of input that he really wants into where the show is going to go. And if you've seen him on any interviews or any other show guest appearances, you kind of get that vibe from him. So because he loves to be the MC, to take charge, So in a good way, he's really good about that. He's really fun. So it was a really good little interview. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, as you said, I appreciated that honesty and the approach of it being seen as the miniseries. And we've talked about it so many times that, yes, if you got a good story, go ahead and tell it and then move on. But, the TV business can't do it if they think there's some money left on the table. So it was refreshing. That's the right word, like you said, to hear that. So I'm going to be on board to give it a chance and at a decent start. And so we're going to have to see. It's a little, I won't say unnerving, a little unsettling to see him in the role he's in so far, because that's not what I've normally seen him in as far as the type of roles. So, but I do like his work. So, like I said, it's another part of why I'm enjoying it, being able to try to go all in without bringing any baggage to it.
Yeah, I loved this because I do really appreciate that he wanted to play a character that was not Chuck again, even though he's very much a genre guy and loved playing that character. I really appreciated that. his comments about, this is a mini series and if there's a satisfying arc, it should just be done. That's a great restraint on the part of an actor. The other thing I thought was really interesting were his comments about knowing that he likes to do more than be the actor. He likes to work behind the scenes and have creative input to what's going on. And that clearly comes across whenever I watch any of the panels that he runs for the Nerd HQ stuff that he orchestrates for the Operation Smile fundraising for San Diego Comic-Con. I mean, he's a great host when he is actually the one asking the questions to the panel. He clearly is directing all the activities behind the scenes and has a great team that he's working with. So, I would love to see him be a showrunner at some point. I think he'd probably put together a great show.
Yeah, or even when he's hosting Geeks Who Drink, or as I like to refer to it, Drinks Who Geek.
Yeah, I would be sad if he had to give up that show in order to have another full-time TV series, because I do like that. And let's move on to a little bit of casting news, just a little bit about Game of Thrones and Legends of Tomorrow. So if you don't want to know what's coming, skip ahead a couple of minutes. But for Game of Thrones Season 6, there's been news about the casting of Samwell Tarly's family. James Faulkner, who is probably known for Da Vinci's Demons, is going to be playing his father. Samantha Spiro will be playing his mother, Melissa. Rebecca Benson will be his sister, whose name is Talia. And I think recently we talked about his brother, Dickon, was already cast to play by Freddie Stoma. So a little bit more filling out, and that casting news kind of ties together with where he was headed at the end of season 5. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see Sam mixing it up with the family. The other casting news is about Legends of Tomorrow. Stephanie Cornelissen, I think is how her last name is pronounced, who was recently on Mr. Robot, has been cast to play one of the DC Comics characters, Valentina Vostok. That's going to span a couple of episodes. And it sounds like there's time travel involved. She's playing a Soviet physicist who is working at the height of the Cold War, possibly working with Vandal Savage, we already talked about, is coming into the season. And she's going to be mixing it up with Ray and Captain Cold to possibly shake out where her alliances might end up. But this was cool to learn that we're going to have time travel for a couple of episodes in this season.
Well, it's cool. In Game of Thrones, we're going to get Sam's family, but that casting for Legends of Tomorrow is pretty awesome as well. And yeah, absolutely. We've been told all along that Legends of Tomorrow is going to be filled with time travel. It's basically Doctor Who, so it's almost every episode is going to be time travel. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, the Legends of Tomorrow one, just interesting as we're starting to fill out that universe a little bit. Game of Thrones, I know Wendy's our expert, and many of you are much more knowledgeable than I, so I just looked and went, okay, Richard filling in what's going on, and a character I enjoy, so a little more around him would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I think Sam's going to have a really important role to play in Season 6, so I'm definitely looking forward to his story arc. I wasn't thinking that Legends of Tomorrow would be time travel every week. I was thinking it would be kind of a balance between present and, future more than past. So to me, this was kind of a nice surprise. But I guess you're right. Maybe it will be very Doctor Who timey-wimey.
Yeah, I never saw any interview or anything that said every week's going to have time travel, but I saw a couple of interviews with people involved in the show who said it's a time travel show. And we've got an alum from Doctor Who as a time-traveling leader of the pack. So yeah, I imagine it will be.
Yeah, I was just thinking, The Flash is a time travel show too, but they spend most of their time in the present. So that's why I was kind of thinking that Legends of Tomorrow would be similar. Speaking of time travel, Kevin's got some news about Continuum.
Yeah, for those of you who like to get a little more info about the show, and this is certainly one that you normally do because of the layers of what's going on here. The latest, as of the time we're recording this, actually episode number 104 of the Liberate Continuum podcast that Mike and Dave do. Outstanding podcast, by the way, as you've heard promos here and us mention it. They talk to the folks who wrote episode 403. They had, as they often do on their podcast, many listener feedbacks or questions about things, but they got an opportunity to have Jeremy Smith and Todd Ireland join them for about a 40-minute podcast, answering some of those questions brought up by the listeners and also brought up by Mike and Dave. Now, naturally, they can't give away big things here, folks. It's not like they're going to tell us what's going to happen in these final few eps. And a few of the things they naturally have to be very coy on. But I did appreciate that some of the things that have happened previously in the series, they were able to fill in a little bit on. A couple of things that are happening now, they're able to kind of give you one of those, well, hold that thought. We're not going to drop that. A couple of things that we've maybe in our discussion said, I wonder if they'll be addressing this. They did confirm, yes, we will find out more about X. So I wouldn't call it spoilery in any way, shape, or form, but you're going to get teased a little bit. And it's also fun to hear from some of the writers on some things that we might have, I certainly, myself on a couple of points went, oh yeah, I forgot about that in typical Continuum fashion. Oh, that's right. They did address that back in season 1. So that's where it's good. That's where I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Oh, this is cool. I haven't had a chance to listen to this yet, but I'm looking forward to it. I was a little bit worried, actually, that what they said might sort of taint me for when I was watching the episodes. So that's why I didn't rush out to listen to it.
Yeah, trust me, folks, you're going to have to listen to this because I don't have time to listen to this, but I cannot get Kevin to give me a summary of what they said, so I'm out of luck.
Have to save that for off mic.
Contest clip time. In this clip, tell us how many rounds that Nathan James has left.
TAO, what's left in the holster?
Just the rounds in the 5-inch, sir.
How many?
4.
And let's move on to another show we're greatly anticipating. Brent's got some more info about Ash versus the Evil Dead.
Yes, we've got one of those kind of first look videos that are long. This one's, I think, like 2.5 minutes or so. The ones that have the interspersed interviews with the usually the cast and crew, but I think it's all the cast this time, and lots of cool scenes and a bit of the story, and the cast kind of describes what's going on in the story and where their characters are, and we're introduced to some new characters, and I kind of really dig this. My grin was getting bigger and bigger the further along we went in this and saw the evolution of some of the characters through this first look, and I notified the community. I let you guys know last time that Ash vs. Evil Dead is the show I am most highly anticipating, new show for this coming season, and I can say that's still the case.
Yeah, this is and this type stuff. This specific, as you said, of a behind the scenes, a little bit more info, a couple of shots from some of those scenes, just even more getting me excited for this stuff. Looking really, really good.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned having a big smile on your face because I just have a huge grin on my face after I was watching the video and laughing at it and just really eagerly anticipating this coming. I mean, I already knew I was excited for, Lucy Lawless and the Ash character, but the other gang, I'm really excited for them too. They've done some really interesting casting, and I think the tone is going to be, just what we need right now. It's going to find an interesting niche amongst all the shows that are out there right now. It's going to hit the right notes, I think, for me. And let's move on to another show that's about to kick off. Kevin's got a little bit of info about Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah, I don't know about you folks, but I was a huge fan of Season 1. Season 2 kind of lost a little bit, in my opinion, but I've been very cautiously optimistic for Season 3, and since it's coming very soon, what we have here in the link to a trailer, where you're going to find a trailer, 30-second trailer for the season, as well as about 15 photos, probably from those first couple of episodes back. So the trailer, it's not one of the long ones, it's maybe 30 seconds or so. It's going to give you just a little bit of info, but you do get to see our lead characters. They look a little different. Without being spoilery, there's a bit of a time jump from the end of last season to this, so a few things have happened. We're going to see what happens there. There are some new characters coming in. You get to see those in some of the screenshots, the Betsy Ross character that we've mentioned. And, as they want to do in TV shows, the look of Betsy Ross here is much different than what all of us saw in school. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, Betsy Ross is definitely not the way I pictured her as a child. Betsy was a babe, apparently. And Ichabod and Abby both got new hairdos, which I approve of their new hairdos. I like those. I have to say, I'm not all that excited about Sleepy Hollow after a lot of the showrunner comments about how they were going to fix it after season 2. So even though I'm liking the makeover on the characters, there wasn't enough in that trailer to get me all that excited. It hasn't really moved up in my anticipation over some other shows.
Yeah, I got to agree with you, Wendy. The second season, I agree with you, Kevin, too, was kind of lackluster and kind of lost a lot of interest in it. But what the producer said they were going to do did not excite me. The photos do not excite me. The trailer did not really excite me. So I'm still going to tune in to see if maybe they have created a brand new show. Maybe I can look at it that way and come into it completely fresh and forget about the first 2 seasons and forget about Henry Parrish and all that stuff and the Horsemen and all of that and try to make it a new show and enjoy it. But I don't know.
Don't overthink it, okay? Just don't overthink it.
Yeah, I'm trying to go back to, it's Ichabod and Abby, kicking butt. If it does that, they might be able to sort of get rid of the confusion of season 2.
Yeah, I want it back so bad. I'm putting my blinders on big time. I'll admit it right now. So I'm really hoping I might be the one most disappointed because the two of you are being very smartly cautious.
Yeah, we've been burned before.
Yeah, I know, and I'm afraid I will be too. But I really want it back.
Chronicles.
Yeah,
among others.
Supernatural. There's a lot. So let's move on to something interesting that Netflix has shared. They have done a study in which they looked at 20 of their shows across 16 global markets, and they're trying to understand when people get hooked on a show. And the definition of hooked, or the episode in which someone becomes hooked, is defined when 70% of the viewers who watch that episode go on to complete the entire season 1 of the show. And what they did was they identified them by country and then looked at things in more detail from there. So it was interesting because, one, they found that no country got hooked on the first episode, although there were a couple shows that people were hooked by the second. Breaking Bad and Bates Motel, surprisingly. They also found that there's regional differences. The Dutch tend to fall in love with shows 1 episode earlier than other countries in general. Germany was an early adopter of Arrow. And in New Zealand and Australia, they seem to be slow to adopt anything. They're consistently, across the shows they looked at, 1 or 2 episodes slower than other places to actually get hooked on a show. So this was really interesting, and you have to wonder a little bit if they were doing this to confirm their business model, which says people don't get hooked on the first episode, so give them all the episodes and maybe people will sample their way through until they get hooked.
Yeah, they said Netflix looked for signals at pointing to when viewers became hooked. And I'm just kind of curious, what signals? I mean, do you look at viewership and how many people viewed the entire season and versus how many people watched 1 or 2 episodes and stopped, and then you figure, well, if that's the case, then the 3rd episode must have been the one that hooked. I don't understand it, but how can you tell? I mean, as somebody who watches stuff on Netflix, how could they tell when I was hooked on the show? I mean, they could tell if I watched the whole thing and watched it fairly quickly that I was hooked, but when did I get hooked? How the heck could they ever tell that? I guess maybe and this comes back to Daredevil and stuff like that again, maybe, and this is my theory, that it's a case of, okay, I watch 1 episode here, I watch another episode in a couple of days, and then I watch another episode, and then all of a sudden I watch a whole bunch of episodes in a row. And that's the signal that's when I got hooked.
And the thing that I found interesting on this is that, as you said, this is Netflix's data, which they don't tend to share a lot of that. So I think, as you said, Wendy, very correctly, they were trying to, well, I'm not sure they were trying. The data they chose to release here is trying to back up that idea that, yes, that's the reason why we drop so many episodes, is people don't get hooked on the first or second, so we want to make sure they have several to have it happen. Their definition, I think, Brent, was that is which episode was the one where if folks then went to the end of the series if they got at least this far, and that was like a 70%. If that many occurred at this episode, that was considered the point where they were, doing my air quotes, hooked. But the key thing that isn't here, and you mentioned it, Brent, is that's what I want to hear is in what time period did they then watch like 5 episodes in a day or 7 episodes over 2 days? That, I think, is the definition of a hooked
That's
to
got to
me.
be a factor, right?
Yeah, I think it's got to be, because that's very much a key to being hooked on something, is not that you then continued through to watch it. If that took it 2 years, so what? But
Exactly.
if you watched it over a weekend, okay, then you're hooked on a show.
Well, it's funny because they included Daredevil in this study, and the 5th episode is the episode that I got hooked, and I did flip the switch to, okay, I'm just watching the rest of this now. So I think they didn't include that in, their description of the study, but I think they definitely looked at the time period in which people consumed the remaining episodes for sure. So that was cool. Hopefully Netflix will release more of that kind of information. I'm curious how that jibes with anybody's actual experiences with some of the Netflix shows. And speaking of Netflix shows, Kevin's got a little bit of info about the upcoming Jessica Jones.
Yeah, just the other day, earlier today, maybe it was, from the time we were recording here on Saturday, Netflix put out the teaser trailer for Jessica Jones, coming in November. All episodes dropping on the same day, Netflix model. And it's not a lot of detail, but it's one little bit of a scene, and you can try to read a lot into this. But basically, it's an alarm clock going off, and presumably our lead character reaching over to turn it off. Looks from what's lying, the alcohol on the table, the dishevelment of the room, the fact that the alarm's going off at what looks to be 3 p.m. But the character reaches over to turn it off, and the way to turn it off is to literally with one hand crush the alarm clock into tiny pieces. So take what you want from that.
Well, I know I took a lot because I don't know anything about this character, so I wasn't imagining her to have super strength. And if you look at the picture of the actress, she doesn't look like she's really ripped or anything. So it worked for me in terms of getting me intrigued about what's coming. And she's definitely a party girl if she's still asleep at 3 p.m.
Yeah, the descriptions I've read, she's super, super strong. She's stronger than Captain America. She's about as strong as Thor. So she's really, really strong. That's kind of her power. I don't know if she's invulnerable or anything like that. But yeah, this I don't know if this did that much for me. Everything that was clear in here, the drinking, the having a miserable life, the super strength was all I already knew from watching other things and reading other things. So quite frankly, they told me this is from the show, but it could have been any actress. It didn't even have to be the one playing Jessica Jones, because we never actually see her face. We just see her laying face down in the bed and then her arm coming out. So it didn't really do much. It was cool, I guess, but I want a real trailer, and there's a good chance we'll get one now, because they actually have, like I said, this. We've been told this is footage from the actual show. Maybe it's the opening or something, but that means they have actual edited stuff that they could put a trailer together with. So maybe we will see one in the next few days. I hope so.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to a meteor trailer as well, I have to admit. So we've been talking about a lot of new shows. Brent has some news about some shows coming to the UK.
Yeah, there's a link to an article that tells you about 5 new shows that you should watch in the UK. 3 of them, I think, qualify as genre, and I'm going to talk about those really quickly. One is called Tripped. It's coming in October to E4 in the UK. There's no US network yet. It's about 2 childhood friends who find themselves traveling to various parallel universes. So think Bill and Ted combined with Sliders, I guess. We also have Jekyll and Hyde, yet another remake of Jekyll and Hyde, coming in October as well to ITV. And it's apparently a 10-part action-adventure series that's set in 1930s London. So there's a lot of these period kind of settings. There was Victorian, Edwardian, and now I guess whatever the 30s is, for Jekyll and Hyde. Also, another one is called You, Me, and the Apocalypse, which apparently is kind of a comedy drama thing about some friends who get together prior to this huge comet about to impact the Earth. So I guess that could be pretty funny. It's going to premiere at the end of September on Sky One, and apparently NBC in the U.S. has already acquired this for air. Doesn't mean it's going to air on NBC Network. I imagine that could mean it'll air on any of the NBC properties, including SciFi or USA or anything like that. So, I mean, I'll probably check each one of these out. Well, maybe not Jekyll and Hyde, but I'll check out Tripped and Yumi and the Apocalypse.
Yeah, the Tripped one sounds like it could be funny. I mean, it's a pretty short series. I think they said something like only 4 episodes on that one. But again, concept looks kind of humorous. The other one, it's interesting, as always tends to happen. Not always, I should say. What will tend to happen a lot of times when shows come from the UK, they're choosing to rename it. You know, You, Me, and the Apocalypse on Sky One in the UK turns into You, Me, and the End of the World on the NBC property. So a little bit of a change there. But the idea, as you said, could be interesting. We've seen a couple of those done in the movies lately. So the idea of an ongoing series, maybe with a little sense of humor, could be interesting.
Yeah, of those 3, the one that did sound kind of the most interesting was the comedy about the apocalypse, mostly because of the casting. I mean, it's got Jenna Fisher in it, Megan Mullally, Rob Lowe. That's some interesting casting to be mixing it up with a lot of interesting British actors, including Diana Rigg. So I'm really hoping that NBC does put this someplace, at least on USA, if not on NBC. It has some interesting possibilities, and it is 10 episodes, so that's, a meaty enough run, I would think. I have to agree, Brent, I'm not all that interested in another Jekyll and Hyde story. That one was sort of the least appealing. I liked Bill and Ted. I think I could be in the mood for some wacky time travel from some teenagers myself.
Kevin, on the renaming of You, Me, and the Apocalypse to You, Me, and the End of the World, I think what we're supposed to get out of that is Americans is dumb and they don't know what the word apocalypse means.
Apocalypse is too long of a word.
Maybe it's too depressing.
We need to be told it means the end of the world. I know. That's why I had to make a comment about it.
Yeah, I think it's just too negative for people. So let's finish things out with a tuner minute. This one is called That Seems Familiar.
I tuned in this week to the premiere of Minority Report and was soon struck with a feeling that I had seen this formula before. Not the precog stuff, silly. Of course the concept of the precogs was in the movie, but the formula of the lead characters and what they do. You have a guy out of place in society convincing a young, attractive female police officer that he can be of help to stop bad things happening in town. She has to keep who he is a secret from her friends and coworkers, and they stumble through helping to save the day. Now, am I describing Minority Report? Or am I describing Sleepy Hollow? Or maybe even Forever? Or the 2 or 3 shows I'm sure you've thought of while listening to my description? Does the obvious similarity of a new show to another one you watched throw you out of the experience? Does it impact your enjoyment at all? Do unique characters or settings help you to see past the similarity?
I'm going to put a lot of caveats on that because I've seen situations where, for me, I'm totally cool if it looks like a retread, for want of a better description, and other times where I'm immediately going to other places. And we've mentioned it on the Minority Report show that is new this week, because it's the same network as Almost Human, which had a very similar concept that they didn't renew. So, it always, though, in all that's just stuff for us to babble about and talk about and have some fun on the podcast and with our friends. But as far as enjoying and watching it, as long as you still give me something that I'm going to find entertaining, I can be okay if it seems like the very, very familiar situation that we've had before. For me, jury's still out on Minority Report because nothing really grabbed me that hard yet. But, so sometimes they can make it work. I can be okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with things looking familiar. And as Kevin mentioned, I actually was thinking more about Almost Human than Sleepy Hollow in terms of the derivative nature of Minority Report. But I totally see your point. I mean, one of the things that we talked about you seeing other shows. It's because Minority Report, without giving away a lot of spoilers, I don't think it created characters that really popped right out of the gate. So they felt like characters we've seen before. They haven't carved their own trail yet. I'm not entirely sure if it can, if the possibilities are there. After the pilot, I don't know, but it was just a pilot. So in a way, I kind of expect it to sort of give you these archetypal character moments and, the partners that are work together, but they're, of course, unexpected allies. There's not much new under the sun when you're going for that formula, which is essentially a buddy cop show, underneath it with some larger mystery that they're wrapping around it. So it didn't bother me. If we're still looking at this level of characterization and uniqueness, 3 episodes in, then it'll be bothersome.
The buddy cop thing didn't bother me. Even the futuristic buddy cop thing, to you recognize your nod to Almost Human, didn't really bother me. What really bothered me, I guess, and it didn't really bother me, I guess, but what I really noticed was that it was almost like they took the characters and said, here are the characters, let's use Sleepy Hollow as an example, that are in Sleepy Hollow. Let's move them into the future, into this Minority Report world. Here's the Abby character. Here's the Ichabod character. Here's the, the relative, the close relative. In the case of the police detective, it's her mother. Here's the partner who's gruff and can't be trusted with the truth. And it was almost like a 1-for-1 meshing of the two shows, and that kind of took me out of it for a minute. But I'm going to disagree a little bit, because I thought the characters did mesh really well and did kind of I attached to them. I actually enjoyed the characters, even though I recognize from my standpoint they are the same characters on Sleepy Hollow, just moved over here and taken in a different direction with different actors, is the way I'm looking at it. I actually did find the 2 leads very interesting. I found some of the other characters very interesting, and I'm definitely interested in watching more of the show. It's just I kind of wondered as I was doing it, and as I was going through this experience of looking at the show as it was playing out and saying, this is Sleepy Hollow, just done in the future in a different world. That if does it affect anybody else if that kind of thing occurs to them when they see something and say, that's exactly like X. I've seen X. Not that there's similarities. I mean, we've talked about things like Killjoys being having a Firefly feel. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about almost 1-for-1 replacements of characters, which is what we're seeing. I'm personally seeing between Sleepy Hollow and Minority Report. So I don't know. I was just curious if it takes anybody out. It didn't take me out for too long. I did step away from the story for a little bit and think about it, but then I just got back into the story and enjoyed it.
Well, I think one thing that'll also play in for me, too, is even if it is that, as you said, mirror copy, if it's a mirror copy of something that I liked a lot, that can actually be in its favor, right? I mean, that's what a lot of networks look for in some of these shows. You find the formula that works, whether it's, like you said, Sleepy Hollow or Bones or name any other kind of show, and let's just, let's make it look just a little different, but it's still at its core the same, and hoping that gets people to like it. So, I won't knock it because it looks so familiar, but there's got to be something, as Wendy said, a couple episodes in that I'm now finding I enjoy after I've chuckled about, hey, it's the Ichabod character, it's the so-and-so character.
Yeah, I mean, if the precog guy is making observational comments about society, then I'm going to have a problem with him. Or, they try to pull the same humor trick. But the character, the cop character, to me, she didn't engage me. I mean, neither one of the characters engaged me that much. It doesn't surprise me, though, that they are trying to replicate the Sleepy Hollow formula, because that's a show that, the passionate fans were very specific about the things they love about that show. So maybe they're trying to think that they're smart and they can, put lightning in a bottle again. And if they have casting magic between the 2 leads, which their chemistry was fine. But for me, it was more, over and over again, we see these archetypal characters. It's always, the cop character who's fierce and has a complicated home life, and the person with the special skill. They're somehow brilliant, but they're weird. There's only so many ways you can do that. And it's like we have pretty much one of those in a lot of shows these days. So for me, Minority Report has a little tougher job to break these characters out and make them uniquely interesting coming out of these molds that they started from.
Hey, minority is kind of a big word. Should they ever rename this to Less Than Half Report?
50% report.
Oh, no, that's a big word, too. Less than half. Just say less than half. People can understand that.
Not quite, but almost. Oh, never mind.
And with that, we're going to wrap up the water cooler and head over to the back porch.
Today we talk about Continuum and Doctor Who.
So first up, Kevin is going to talk about the most recent episode of Continuum.
By most recent, since time travel is involved here, we're talking about episode number 3 of season 4, Power Hour, depending upon which viewing schedule you're on. This, we've touched on, like in the first couple of episodes of season 4, but not loving them based on the high standards we have for Continuum. But this one, certainly probably for me, is my favorite so far, hoping we have a few more that even edge it out. But we've got things continuing with Kira trying to figure out what's going on with those Time Marines, as we're referring to them, and the possibility that they somehow can have some way of assisting her, or what they're doing can shed some light on her ability to be able to, air quotes, go home here. And sure enough, a big part of what happens in this episode is the fact that they're now trying to check out what they're doing at this particular building that we found earlier they told Kellogg he had to get for him. And that Kira, wants to go in and do a little recon on what's going on, and ends up with Garza there to help her. The really cool part about that, since this was the cornerstone of the episode, was the fact that Garza gets to wear one of Kira's suits. They're hoping to go in totally in stealth mode, but they find out that these folks, since they do have so much advanced tech, actually have a way to block that. So their suits only are going to work for like 5 or 6 seconds at a time, which makes for some interesting stuff when they're in there as they're trying to get some info, because they do stumble across the fact that they have quite a bit of power going on in here, the type of power that eventually, as Alec lets Kira know, could be used to power the time travel device, potentially to be able to send Kira home. So from what initially started out as just maybe a gather a little information type mission, it's much more important at this point when she realizes that, even though Garza's in total Garza mode to the point of, these are the bad guys, I see some C4, let's blow them all up, which makes for some tension between Kira and Garza, which makes it very entertaining. Since, Brad is still there and Kira is hesitant of just blowing up the whole facility or taking out any of the people, she still wants a lot more missions. So that was very, very entertaining. We got to see some good special effects as they're in their suits, and they're visible, they're not visible, and things don't go all that well once, I think it's Marcellus is the first one to realize they're there. And that leads to quite the chain of events that we have here in this episode with what's going on, because once they are found out and they're trying to find a way to get away and get out of here, with Garza still being right on point in terms of questioning Kira and her motives, that she seems to be the only one who wants to try to get back to that future that the rest of them think was hellish, and that none of us should want to be there. But in the effort to get away, they find themselves cornered, and sure enough, Marcellus gets the upper hand on Kira to the point of where almost looking like he is going to, with a knife, gut her or take her out, since he's able to knock Garza out. What's been hanging on in the corner of this is the fact that Lucas was out there trying to assist, and being never very good for the fighting or whatever, he does come in, and he's actually the one who was able to take a shot at Marcellus and appears to have killed him. But since Brad was nearby when this happened, he totally reacted in a blink of an eye and shot and killed Lucas. So Kira's very upset by that. Garza is knocked out and woozy and, barely knows what's going on, and Kira has to basically drag her out of there. So I think aren't looking too good for the Brad and Kira getting together on this based on what's just happened here. And it was, poignant and difficult to watch losing Lucas. But as we know, with only a few episodes left, we're probably going to have some of the key characters have something like this happen to them. But it was done very well. I mean, I literally had to rewatch that scene because they did such a good job of making it flow so well and so quickly. It's not like someone is staring at someone making a decision whether or not to shoot. It's a reaction situation. Lucas, who's not very good with a gun, has no choice when he sees it looks like Kira might be killed, and Brad barely is able, being the good soldier, to turn and see someone threatening his friend, Marcellus was his friend, to actually then kill him. So he didn't have any time to think either. So I see some big ramifications for that going forward in the last few episodes. But even aside from all this, we've also had Carlos trying to get information out of Kira. She's not being very forthcoming with exactly what she's been doing with this whole building and the recon and what's going on. So you can tell he's not totally trusting her. They've had Travis locked up in the cell. So at one point, Kira goes down in the cell to let Travis know what happened to Lucas. I mean, there's been quite the, I don't know if you want to call it bonding, but certainly the appreciation, if you will, respect between Travis and Kira. So she tells him this, and we realize that Carlos is listening in on what's going on. That's going to have some ripple effects forward. What does that mean? I love the fact that when this whole played out and Kira and Garza made their getaway, the rest of the folks from the Time Marines, as we're referring to them, kind of gather and realize that actually Brad's supposed to be the ranking officer here, and this is a military operation, but he doesn't want to be leader. He's willing to give it over to, I think the character's name is Zoran, the one who has been trying to kill him or get him out of here for not trusting him. So what is that going to mean? Going to have to wait to see, I guess. Also quite interesting to see the stuff going on with Julian / Theseus, of him and his manifesto and trying to pull away from that, and actually ending up with Curtis's help. Curtis, has been working with the Traveler, kind of dropped little breadcrumbs. He's the one who's really been encouraging Theseus, and when he tells him, this is particular woman who actually posted your whole thing, even though you saw it burn in the fireplace. You're wondering who this person is, and it turns out, sharp eyes, we didn't notice last time, was that was Mrs. Kagami, i.e. Edward's mother. So the young Kagami is there, and to think that Theseus is going to be there while he's a child and what effect that might have on him. Pretty interesting stuff, along with some other good stuff. So I'm hoping this is the episode that's really going to propel us into that wow, OMG kind of stuff for the remainder of the season.
Well, for me, Lucas's death was definitely a wow, OMG. I was really sad when I realized he's dead. Brad really killed him. And also I thought he did a great job in terms of his impact on Julian and Alec. He's telling Julian, what you wrote inspired him, and he is trying to get Julian to see that, the message was manipulated, but the message was still valid. And then later Alec is mentioning to him that he read what was written in Theseus's manifesto, and he thinks that, you would maybe have a different outcome. And then Curtis is sort of trying to tell him the same thing, that, the message might not end up in all this murder and death in the future. I was very surprised with the little boy being Kagami, and the whole notion that Julian might go and try to influence him as a young kid in a different way, possibly. That's a lot of cool stuff. This whole idea that the soldiers are building something that could send Kira home is pretty interesting. And the idea that, she might end up being aligned with them and Kellogg ultimately, if that's the route to back to the timeline she's supposed to get back on. I loved Garza in the CMR. I loved that it didn't really work properly, so they were having difficulties there. And I really liked that she's on the mission. She's like, this thing needs to be taken out. We're going to blow it all up. And she immediately recognizes that Kira is conflicted about Brad. And I got to say, this is testing that trust and relationship, right? Brad kills Lucas. He isn't sharing any information. From what I've seen, I can't really figure out what Brad's plan is, other than at some point he's going to try to take everything apart from the inside. I don't know. I'm assuming the reason he gave the other guy control is, one, I don't really think he knows what the mission is, because he's been need to know up to this point, and maybe if he's not in charge, he'll have more opportunity to sneak off and meet up with Kira. I really liked how Carlos and Kira are not trusting each other, not really having each other's back. It was great the way they put together the flow of Alec deciding he's going to change his destiny by going to work with the cops, and he's actually taking over the job that Betty used to have. So I like that callback to Betty. But immediately Kira's like, tell me everything first, because she's protecting Brad. Don't tell Carlos. And then Carlos comes in and he's like, I want you to track her CMR. Don't let her know that I'm doing it. And then at the very end, Carlos is watching Kira talking to Travis, and she's telling Travis things that she's not telling him that are huge. So there's some major trust and collaboration problems coming between those two. So it still felt like they're setting the pieces in place, but I like that we're finally setting the pieces in place, and I can kind of see where things might be going.
Yeah, something's definitely coming to a head between Kira and Carlos. That they're telegraphing that. Although, again, they've had their distrust issues in the past, but I thought they were on a pretty trusting plane. So something radically has changed this season. But I guess hopefully that'll be explained. I don't know that I'm seeing the Brad Kira stuff the way you guys are, because Brad and Kira have been sharing information. They shared information as recently as the previous episode. It's not like he's keeping things to himself. They agreed that he would stay embedded in this group to try to find out as much as he could, and then at the right possible moment, potentially sabotage. He didn't want to be the leader for a couple of reasons. One, if he's the leader, it's going to be more obvious to them that he's trying to sabotage what's going on. If he's not the leader, he can better share information and allow a sabotage to occur and make it look like the leader's screw up or somebody else's screw up. Also, he needed the trust of the guy. And by turning over command to that guy who had completely distrusted him, that's one big dove or whatever. It's one big happy olive branch that says, I'm on your side. I trust you. Lead us, sort of thing. So he'll hopefully stop suspecting Brad so much for what's going on. And I don't think that Kira is really. I mean, I don't think killing Lucas was a shock, but I don't think that's going to stop the way she feels about Brad or her trust for Brad. She understands what happened there. She doesn't like it, but she understands it. I mean, for goodness sake, Brad killed her, and she was okay with it. So I don't see that that's going to ruin any relationship that they might have. I think that it's unfortunately another bump in the road, but I think it's going places. But yeah, and poor Alec being torn both ways, and what's going on with Kagami and all of that stuff. I don't know. I don't like the feeling that they're trying to hit the reset button on this show. And I don't think they're going to, because I trust Simon Barry enough after all of these seasons that he's not going to hit a reset button at the end. But they're sure twisting everything back to what happened with Kira's future and Liberate and her future with the CPS and all that is the way it's going to be. And I don't want that to be the final scene. I want it to be something more epic and something more grand and something more satisfying.
Yeah, I have the same concerns and feelings. That this, while the best episode of the season so far in my mind, is not where I want to see the continuing episodes be and where I thought they would be, knowing we were only going to get 6 of them this season. So that's part of the concern. You and I touched on that, I think, before we started recording. We're talking about, well, maybe on rewatch, these are really, have more punch to them and so forth. But why should we have to get to that point? They were knocking our socks off. First air, certainly a lot of the stuff near the end of season 3. So there's still a little bit of hesitancy of waiting for it to really hit the mark.
Well, I'm wondering if Simon Barry, he's holding stuff back because he's hoping there might be more of this universe in some other format down the line. So maybe that's why it doesn't feel like it's driving the same way that it did last season. And I'm with you, Brent. I really don't want the story to finish where it puts everything back to the way it was. That future world wasn't very good. And if the price of having a better future is that Kira doesn't have her son, it seemed like the character was willing to accept that last season. And now they've had this flip where she needs to get there and have that again. So I'm struggling a lot with where we currently are. But this episode, I felt like things were finally starting to coalesce, and I'm okay with the idea that you'll still have Theseus and his ideas, but maybe they're going to pan out in a different way. and they'll be able to change that, that corporate Congress into something else, before it turns into a massive, power institution that's controlling everything. And they'll get there through an alternate means than liberate, maybe.
And don't forget, and I didn't listen to the podcast, Kevin, so you can tell me if this was included in that, but there's a lot of little threads out there, like Kira's grandmother being sent away by Kellogg. What's going to happen with that? Does that ever come back into play?
Nothing specific on that. I mean, a couple of the points in that Q&A with the writers was, specifically one thing that came up was the Julian's manifesto. If he threw it in the fire, how why was it so easy for Mrs. Kagami basically to have it? And as they said, if you go back, you remember in a season 1 episode that when Sonia was at the hospital near the finale, she gave Mrs. Kagami a box of things along with a big wad of cash. And it was one of the items in there. That's why she would have a copy of that complete final one that was there from the future. So even if he destroyed it now, it was still there and easily upload to use from there. So they have, tried to keep some of those points very well covered on both ends. The other thing on the whole Kira and her apparent interest now in getting to her son is, and they alluded to it a little bit rather than specifically said it, but in some of the answers was the fact that, yes, the shortened final season, it's not that she wasn't going to get to that point based on some other things. We had to kind of speed it up. So it looks like it's almost like she's flip-flopped. And maybe they believe, based on what's going to happen over the course of the whole set of 6, it'll be more apparent to us. But in the way it's playing out now, it definitely looks like a right turn. Where did we get to here? So that's why part of me is thinking I might, to truly appreciate this final season, have to see all 6 to see it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely intend to rewatch it once we get all of the complete season, because maybe it will change the way I'm thinking. But that I'm glad the writers admitted that they took some shortcuts because of where they needed to get to for this season with that whole character choice. So let's move on to some other characters. Doctor Who returned for Series 9, The Magician's Apprentice, and I'm sure longtime Who fans might have particularly enjoyed this because there was some very direct links to a Tom Baker serial, The Genesis of the Daleks, and the Daleks are certainly one of the most important nemesis of the Doctor throughout the series. And even the prequel that we saw online was sort of nodding to that prior episode. And also the opening I really liked. It really had a feeling of a planet destroyed. They also had these very disturbing hand mines that would suck people into the earth. And a kid who is, I'm not sure why he's there, but he's running around, and the soldiers who try to save him all die trying to save him. But then the Doctor's screwdriver appears, and he's going to help this kid until he learns the kid's name is Davros. And then we cut to, back in London, or I'm sorry, we cut to this other colony where this serpent-like, I was calling him Voldemort, actually, but this serpentine-like guy is looking for the Doctor, and he is looking in a bar that I think we've seen before, and the Doctor's kind of hiding out. And then we jump to London, and we have Clara getting pulled into this strange phenomenon where all the airplanes are frozen, and it turns out that was Missy trying, I guess, to call and get Clara's attention. I'm not really sure why she had to use that as the way to get a meet cute with her in some little Spanish town or something. But Missy claims that she has the last will and testament of the Doctor, which is only delivered the day before a Time Lord is going to die, so they need to go find him. And then we have this really incredible scene where they find him. He's on Earth, but back in time, but he's actually at a fight where instead of the true definition of an axe, he brings a guitar to his axe battle. And arrives on a tank, and we get to hear, I think that was actually Peter Capaldi playing the guitar. I believe he's in a band with Hugh Laurie, in fact. And he did a little cover sample of Pretty Woman as a shout out to Clara. He's got an interesting new look this season. His hair's curlier, maybe a nod to Tom Baker. He's wearing a hoodie under his jacket, so he's rocking some sunglasses. And it turns out that that was also a setup, and he gets taken by the serpent guy, and of course Clara and Missy end up going with them to seek Davros, who is dying and wants to talk to the doctor, and they go along. And there was a very cool scene where they're in the ship, and the Missy character was really interesting in this episode because she was very clear that she's not turned good. She had some great lines about that, and the whole time I was watching the episode, I could not figure out what her angle was in the episode. And there's a great moment where she opens up the door. And Clara's like, what are you doing? We're going to be jettisoned into space. And she's sort of already apparently figured out that they're in like a cloaked environment and that they're actually on Skaro. And, the doctor has this meeting with Davros, and actually the Daleks blast Missy very offhand, kill her, vaporize her, then Clara. So that was all very surprising. I'm not anticipating those deaths will be sticky ones. And then we sort of circle back to that opening scene where the doctor is back at the moment when he met Davros as a kid. And this time he's got one of the weapons, the stalks of the Daleks, and he is possibly going to kill this kid. So, but that was the end of, the first part, and there'll be more. But I liked this whole thing, and usually a lot of times two-parters feel like the first episode is sort of stalling things out and dragging things out before we sort of get to where we're going. This one, I guess, struck a good balance where the stalling things out parts, especially the doctor with the guitar and the tank, was very entertaining, so I didn't mind it so much as I have maybe in some other episodes.
No, that Clara death was sticky. That was her emotional departure from the show. No, I'm sure she'll be back. In fact, I'm pretty sure that the little wrist-bound time travel devices where Missy points out that what they are and points out that Clara's was slave to hers, I'm sure that just as Missy was being shot, she used it and translocated somewhere else. And then she probably pulled Clara out just before she was killed, too. So they're probably together still somewhere. So that's what I'm figuring will happen as we find out what happened to them. That was almost certainly Peter Capaldi playing. He does play. He whether or not he's in a band with Hugh Laurie now, he was in a punk rock band with Craig Ferguson back in the day. And Craig Ferguson was the drummer in that band. So you definitely know he can play. So that's pretty cool to see. I was a little bummed that the dude, that his pal, his mate in the past, dude, you brought a tank, that he turned out to be already being taken over by the Daleks and was a Dalek spy. And that really bummed me out because I kind of wanted him to be a companion. He was pretty cool. So there's no luck there, no hope there. Doctor Sorty contaminated the timeline for a little while by introducing the word dude way too early, but it probably just fades away as most local colloquialisms at that point in time probably did. But the whole Davros dying and Davros remembers, and Snake Dude was cool. I really like the effect. He's not just a rubber mask kind of bad guy, so I like that. Davros was a nice twist. I like that he's back. He's been one of the arch enemies of the Doctor and been around for a very long time. And the Tom Baker scene that he played back was really cool. It's kind of a dilemma, isn't it? Because if he does end up killing young Davros, then that's going to change a lot, including the end of Gallifrey, because that was a war with the Daleks that caused that problem. Of course, we know Gallifrey isn't gone. It's been saved. Gallifrey lives, never again, or whatever the name of that painting was. So, yeah, I really liked this episode. It was very well paced. It kept me on the edge of the seat. I didn't know what was going to happen next, and a lot of great callbacks and a lot of great character moments. So I loved it.
Well, not to rain on the parade, but, as someone who's the more casual Doctor Who fan, while I did enjoy it and it had many excellent moments, I thought for the first episode of a season, it was so deep and so rich in the history of all those characters and other relationships that it was, for me, just a bit much this soon in the season. I was maybe looking for a little more of a one-off story or something to kind of get us started on the season and in terms of where we were going to go. So I did enjoy it. It was very well done, as you both said, being the first part of a two-part story and obviously some amazingly deep story bits with Daleks and Missy and other things that have been happening for many years. So very well done. You both covered it pretty good there. That was probably the only reason why, for me, a little more casual thing, I was like, wow, I almost need a scorecard to keep paying attention to what we're going to do and where we're going to go with all this. And, as you mentioned, the bits with the apparent killings of Missy and Clara, knowing, no, there's no way that is. So that was a little like, okay, that's something you throw at us. So it was an enjoyable ep, but I think I'm going to have to wait and see this second part to kind of maybe have better appreciation for the first part.
Yeah, I was bummed that the dude, I'm going to go with the idea that he was turned into a Dalek at some point. I don't think he was a Dalek the whole time, but I was bummed that they took out that character because I also liked him. I would have liked to see him maybe be a recurring character in this season, which is still possible, with time travel, anything's possible. The other thing that was interesting was this was directed by Hetty MacDonald, who had directed Blink. That's the only other episode she's done. And I liked it. I guess I'm not with you, Kevin, about they threw too much at us too soon. Because I guess I liked what they threw at us. Maybe if I didn't like it as much, I would quibble about so much stuff that wasn't directly tied to the plot in the beginning. But I'm definitely looking forward to how they wrap this up. Great point, Brent, about the time travel wristband things. I did not remember that. But I totally agree with both of you. They're not dead. They're going to be easily returned for a more dramatic Clara death in the future. I think that's going to be about time for us this week. Before we go, I want to thank all of our listeners for listening. We really appreciate it. We love your feedback. Send in more. And I want to thank Kevin and Brent for a lot of fun talking about some of our favorite shows. We'll see you again soon.
Catch you next time.
Have a great week, everyone.
If you'd like to contact Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV, we offer a variety of feedback options, including email at feedback@tuningintoscifitv.com, voicemail at 206-202-4182, Skype voicemail at Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV, or you can visit our blog and forums at tuningintoscifitv.com. And finally, you can find us on Twitter at twitter.com/tuningintosci-fi or at Facebook by following the link on our website. Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV was hosted by Kevin Batchelder, Wendy Hembrock, and Brent Barrett. The theme music for Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV is by Beatnik Turtle. Used with permission. Listen to Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV on Stitcher Radio on Demand. Download the free app today at Stitcher.com. You've been listening to Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV, episode 353, recorded September 26, 2015.
Oh,
are we going to miss all the quick reviews? We're just going to skip on this week?
Too much caffeine.
There we go. Yeah.
2 minutes in, Kevin.
Too
2
much
minutes.
scrolling. So way too much scrolling.
You win the
going on.
pool this week.
Yeah. I'm just going to jump over everything this time.
That's right. Just go to the end. I want the last page of the book now.
Let's get to the back porch. So, sorry.
Welcome to the last call, folks.